We've all heard the rule that the customer is always right. But what happens when the customer demands that the sun change its position in the sky? Or that a foreign country alter its time zone to match their personal watch? Drop thousands of adults into an isolated floating city, and you get some of the most spectacularly unhinged refund demands ever documented at sea. 1. Brenda from Ohio, traveling in cabin 8144, approached guest services on day 2 of a 7-night Eastern Caribbean sailing, with a grievance that fundamentally challenged the physical properties of the planet. She did not yell, she did not cry, but rather she produced a pristine, neatly cut piece of heavy cardstock from her designer handbag, a paint swatch from a hardware store, specifically a shade called Bahamian Breeze. She placed the swatch flat on the mahogany counter, tapped it twice with a perfectly manicured acrylic nail, and informed the guest services manager that the ocean outside her balcony did not match the promotional materials. The manager, a remarkably patient man from Croatia who had survived a decade in maritime hospitality and possessed the weary eyes of a seasoned diplomat, initially assumed she was making a dry joke and offered a polite, practiced chuckle. Brenda did not chuckle back. She slid a printed copy of the cruise line's promotional email across the desk, pointing to a highly saturated, heavily filtered stock image of a tropical beach, and explained that she had paid precisely $4,268 for a turquoise experience, but was currently receiving a cobalt reality. This is a fascinating manifestation of what psychologists call the commodification of nature, the phenomenon where a consumer is so intensely conditioned by curated media that they genuinely believe environmental realities are a breach of corporate contract. Brenda demanded a 40% refund on her total cabin fare, calculating mathematically that since the water only reached acceptable turquoise levels near the shallow ports, the deep ocean days were essentially defective products that failed to deliver the promised aesthetic. She insisted that the captain could simply steer the ship into shallower, lighter-colored water, and since he was actively choosing to take the deep route just to save on fuel, she was entitled to a rebate for his stinginess. The manager patiently explained the concept of ocean depth, light absorption, and the Mariana Trench, effectively giving a third-grade marine biology lesson to a 54-year-old regional manager of a dental supply company. Brenda was entirely unswayed by the laws of physics. She requested a formal incident report be filed, insisted on photographing the Croatian manager holding the paint swatch against the backdrop of a porthole window for her legal records, and left the desk promising to contact the Better Business Bureau to report the ocean for false advertising. 2. Kevin, a 28-year-old financial analyst from Chicago, booked a premium aft-facing balcony suite on a massive 4,000-passenger vessel specifically to propose to his girlfriend of 3 years. By day 4 of the voyage, Kevin was sitting in the windowless, fluorescent-lit security office on deck 2, red-faced, vibrating with a very specific type of corporate rage, and sliding a 7-page itemized demand letter across a metal table toward the chief security officer. Kevin was officially demanding a 100% refund of his entire cruise fare, a full refund for his girlfriend's fare, reimbursement for their pre-cruise hotel stay in Miami, and a daily emotional distress per diem of $500. His reasoning, typed in 12-point Times New Roman with aggressively bolded bullet points, was that the ship's negligent architectural design and reckless propulsion speeds had maliciously destroyed his romantic future. According to Kevin, he had meticulously planned to drop to one knee exactly at sunset while standing on the top deck near the miniature golf course. He claimed that just as he pulled the velvet box containing a 2-carat diamond ring from his pocket, the ship aggressively accelerated without warning, creating a completely unprovoked artificial windstorm that physically ripped the ring from his fingers and sent it tumbling over the glass partition into the Atlantic Ocean. He argued that the windbreaks were negligently low, the captain was speeding, and the cruise line was strictly liable for creating a hostile atmospheric environment. Because a lost 2-carat diamond is a major insurance liability, the security team immediately launched an investigation, pulling the high-definition footage from the camera positioned directly above the 9th hole of the mini golf course. When the chief security officer invited Kevin into the office to review the tape, the situation took a sharp turn from a tragic maritime accident into a masterpiece of frantic self-preservation. The footage showed Kevin arriving on the top deck a full 20 minutes before his girlfriend. He was completely alone, wearing a tightly fitted linen suit, holding the open ring box, and practicing his proposal angles while holding his phone out to test the sunset lighting. In his attempt to get the perfect practice selfie, Kevin rested the open velvet box on the slick, curved, polished teakwood handrail, took 2 steps back to frame the shot, and watched helplessly as a completely standard, mild ocean breeze, the kind that barely ripples a pool towel, caught the hinged lid. The box tipped backward, slid down the curved wood, and quietly vanished over the side of the ship. Kevin stood frozen for 10 seconds, aggressively rubbed his face, and then spent the next 20 minutes pacing the deck before his girlfriend arrived, entirely fabricating the story of the sudden nautical windstorm to cover up the fact that he had sacrificed his future marriage to the gods of social media. When the officer gently paused the time-stamped video evidence, a normal human being would have crumpled in embarrassment. But Kevin executed a psychological pivot of breathtaking audacity, pointing at the monitor and stating that the footage only proved his case further. He demanded an entirely new refund for the cost of the ring itself, arguing that if the ship's railing had been constructed with an anti-slip friction coating, the box would have remained stationary, making the cruise line guilty of maintaining a dangerously slippery surface. The security officer, maintaining absolute professional neutrality, nodded slowly and explained that in order to process such a massive maritime liability claim, they would need his girlfriend to come down to the office immediately to sign a witness affidavit regarding the emotional impact of the loss. Kevin's face instantly drained of color, and he stammered that she was resting and shouldn't be disturbed, but the officer had already dispatched a crew member to their cabin. 10 minutes later, the heavy metal door swung open, and his girlfriend walked in, looking deeply confused, holding a half-empty piña colada, and wearing the exact 2-carat diamond ring on her left hand that Kevin claimed was currently resting at the bottom of the ocean. The silence in the room was so heavy it had its own gravitational pull. As she slowly looked from the ring on her finger to the frozen security footage of Kevin dropping a box over the railing, the real story unspooled. Kevin had never brought the actual ring to the top deck. He had safely locked the diamond in the cabin safe, taken the empty velvet box upstairs, and intentionally nudged it over the edge while filming himself on his phone. His grand master plan was to stage a viral TikTok video about a ruined proposal at sea, banking on the assumption that the resulting internet outrage would pressure the cruise line into gifting them a free luxury honeymoon and a massive public relations payout. But when he realized the ship's security cameras had caught him tossing an empty box, he panicked, assumed he was going to be billed for a fake rescue operation, and preemptively went on the offensive by demanding a refund with a fake legal letter. Even as his girlfriend slowly took off the ring and placed it on the metal table, Kevin didn't apologize. He just looked at the chief security officer and asked if they could at least refund his Wi-Fi package since he hadn't been able to upload the video. 3. On the final morning of a 10-night Mediterranean sailing, a 62-year-old retired contractor from Texas did not go to guest services, but instead tracked down the ship's food and beverage director directly at the Lido buffet. He marched right past the omelet station, carrying a dry cleaning receipt and a remarkably hostile attitude regarding his own metabolism, and cornered the executive between the carving station and a mountain of croissants. He demanded a full refund of his prepaid daily gratuities, all European port taxes, and the cost of his premium beverage package, totaling roughly $450. His grievance was entirely centered around the architectural layout of the buffet, which he described as a predatory, psychological trap designed specifically to trick American citizens into unauthorized weight gain. He explained, with zero irony, that because the dessert pavilion was strategically located directly in the path between the prime rib station and the exit doors, he was forced to visually interact with the pecan pie every single time he tried to leave the room. He claimed this constituted aggressive dietary entrapment. He informed the director that he had gained exactly 8 pounds in 10 days, which he calculated as nearly a pound a day of unsolicited biological inflation that the cruise line had forced upon his physical form. As undisputed evidence of his suffering, he presented a pair of navy blue tuxedo pants that he had worn on the first formal night and then attempted to wear again on the second formal night, pointing a thick, calloused finger at the waistband to show where the metal button had violently snapped off somewhere near the casino blackjack tables. He demanded the refund not as a gesture of goodwill, but as a punitive fine against the cruise company for failing to install physical barriers or warning signs about the caloric density of their complimentary pastries. 4. A family of 4 from New Jersey managed to miss the ship's departure in Cozumel, Mexico, an objectively stressful event that usually results in frantic phone calls to embassies and a desperate scramble to book emergency transport. This family successfully booked the flights, managed to catch up with the ship at the very next port in Roatan, Honduras, 2 days later, and the second their feet touched the gangway threshold on Deck 3, the father transformed into a conquering general demanding international reparations. Standing right in the middle of the security checkpoint, blocking a line of returning passengers, he slammed a meticulously highlighted spreadsheet onto the podium of the deck officer. He was demanding a full cash refund for the 2 nights they weren't on the ship, a refund for their emergency flights, a refund for their budget hotel in Cozumel, and a refund for the 4 overpriced margaritas they drank at the airport while waiting for said flights. His entire argument rested on a profound misunderstanding of how the planet Earth fundamentally operates. The ship's clearly posted all-aboard time in Cozumel was 4:30 p.m. local ship time. The father, sweating through a Tommy Bahama shirt, argued that because they were American citizens who had departed from Miami, their cell phones, wristwatches, and biological clocks were permanently tethered to Eastern Standard Time. He proudly proclaimed that they had arrived at the Mexican pier at precisely 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, only to find the massive vessel already pulling away from the dock. The deck officer gently pointed out that Mexico is in an entirely different time zone. The ship operates strictly on ship time, and there were daily announcements, printed itineraries left on their bed, and giant neon signs at the exit, explicitly warning passengers not to trust the automatic network time zone updates on their smartphones. Think about the sheer level of confidence required to pull this off. This is geographical narcissism in its purest form. The staggering psychological belief that paying for an international vacation package somehow bends the physical laws of time and global geography to suit the customer's personal zip code. The father stared at the officer with a mix of pity and outrage, explaining loudly that he did not pay $5,000 to be forced to adopt Mexican time against his will. He argued that the cruise line's failure to strictly adhere to Florida time in foreign sovereign waters constituted a deceptive business practice designed to strand passengers on purpose just to save money on the dinner buffet. He ended his tirade by refusing to move his luggage, pulling out his phone, and threatening to utterly destroy the multi-billion-dollar maritime corporation with a blistering 1-star review on Yelp and a furious live stream to his 54 Facebook followers, genuinely believing that his social media outrage would force the captain to throw the engines into reverse and refund his entire vacation. 5. Arthur, a 71-year-old retired actuary from Omaha traveling solo, attended the evening illusionist show in the ship's main theater and left with a profound sense of financial violation. The magician had performed a remarkably standard cruise ship routine. He borrowed Arthur's vintage gold wristwatch, dropped it into a black velvet bag, appeared to violently smash it with a heavy wooden mallet, and then magically produced the pristine, ticking watch from inside a sealed lemon. The crowd cheered. Arthur politely clapped, retrieved his perfectly unharmed property, and immediately walked out of the theater, marched past the casino, and stood at the customer relations desk. He was not complaining about the quality of the entertainment. He was officially demanding a 25% refund of his entire cruise fare based on the psychological distress of temporary unsanctioned property leasing. Arthur argued, with the grim, unyielding logic of a man who had spent 40 years calculating corporate risk probabilities, that for roughly 3.5 minutes, the cruise line had subjected him to the genuine belief that his primary timekeeping device was destroyed. He stated that the ship's entertainment staff had no legal right to induce an artificial state of grief for public amusement without offering immediate financial compensation. When the bewildered attendant gently pointed out that his watch was currently ticking happily on his wrist and absolutely no physical damage had occurred, Arthur adjusted his glasses, tapped the marble counter, and explained that the refund was not for structural damage, but for the unauthorized emotional depreciation he suffered while looking at the crushed velvet bag. 6. The phantom odor of cabin 10224 remains a legendary cautionary tale among the housekeeping staff of a prominent European luxury line. Gary and Linda, a meticulously dressed couple in their late 40s from suburban Atlanta, marched into the concierge lounge on the second morning of a tropical sailing to report an aggressive, deeply offensive smell in their interior stateroom. Gary described the scent as a combination of an Italian restaurant explosion and a damp basement, demanding immediate relocation and a full cash refund for the first 2 days of their vacation. The hotel director, accustomed to minor complaints, dispatched a senior maintenance team to investigate. The engineers sniffed the room, agreed there was a distinct, eye-watering aroma of raw garlic permeating the air, and thoroughly sanitized the carpets, walls, and upholstery. By that evening, Linda was back at the concierge desk, pinching the bridge of her nose in exaggerated disgust, loudly claiming the toxic fumes were giving her heart palpitations. To avoid a larger scene that might disturb other wealthy guests, management authorized a highly unusual mid-cruise upgrade, moving the couple to a premium balcony suite 3 decks higher, and offered them a substantial onboard credit as an apology for the mysterious ventilation failure. For 24 hours, peace reigned over the vessel. But on the morning of day 4, the hotel director received a furious, all-caps email from Gary. The exact same suffocating garlic odor had mysteriously infected their brand-new balcony suite. Gary was now threatening immediate legal action and demanding a 100% cash refund for their entire $4,500 cruise fare, arguing that the ship was clearly suffering from a systemic, vessel-wide toxic mold issue that the corporation was trying to cover up. This was an all-hands-on-deck crisis. The chief engineer, the executive housekeeper, and the hotel director personally marched up to the new suite while the couple was down at the pool, fully intending to dismantle the air conditioning unit. They expected to find a dead rodent, a ruptured gray water pipe, or a major mechanical failure. Instead, when the engineer unscrewed the metal intake grate directly above the bed, a massive hand-tied mesh bag filled with roughly 20 peeled, crushed wet garlic cloves plummeted from the ceiling and hit the carpet with a wet thud. A frantic search of the room revealed 3 more identical garlic sacks stuffed into the bedside lampshades and wedged securely behind the mini-fridge. When Gary and Linda returned to the room to grab sunscreen and found 3 high-ranking maritime executives staring silently at their makeshift produce aisle, the twist finally unspooled. Gary looked completely baffled, but Linda immediately went on the defensive. She admitted that she had packed 4 pounds of raw garlic in her checked luggage because a holistic wellness influencer on TikTok had claimed that hiding crushed garlic in a hotel room's air vents creates an invisible, microbial shield that guarantees you won't catch norovirus. This perfectly illustrates how vacation environments can amplify health paranoia. When people are removed from their familiar medical safety nets, they often resort to bizarre, pseudo-scientific rituals for control. She had secretly been taping the bags into the vents of the first cabin, and when they got their free upgrade, she diligently packed up her rotting biological weapons and installed them in the new suite. Yet, even when caught red-handed, creating the exact biohazard they had used to extort an upgrade, Linda did not apologize. Instead, she doubled down on the absurdity. She looked the hotel director dead in the eye and demanded her refund anyway, arguing that if the luxury ship's air conditioning system had been built with stronger suction, it would have pulled her microbial shield safely into the corridors instead of letting the smell linger in her room, thereby proving the ship was still mechanically defective. 7. Ever notice how the sudden removal of daily responsibilities causes perfectly rational adults to forget basic planetary mechanics? Chloe, a 23-year-old aspiring lifestyle blogger from California, occupied a premium padded lounger near the main pool exactly at 8 in the morning, marking her territory with 3 paperbacks and a designer tote bag. By 1:15 in the afternoon, she was standing at the towel exchange kiosk, fiercely demanding a full refund of her daily automatic gratuities and the entire cost of her premium streaming Wi-Fi package. Her grievance was stunningly simple. Her sun lounger was fundamentally defective because it was now entirely covered in shade. The massive cruise ship, navigating through the open waters of the Bahamas, had gently altered its course by a few degrees to reach the next port, causing the immense shadow of the ship's smokestack to slowly creep across the top deck and completely swallow Chloe's carefully curated tanning zone. She found a senior deck attendant in a crisp white uniform and asked him with complete sincerity to either physically dismantle the smokestack or call the bridge and have the captain rotate the boat back so she could finish her tan before golden hour. When the attendant politely explained that a 100,000-ton vessel could not alter its international navigational heading for a single sunbathing session, Chloe argued that the cruise line was guilty of bait-and-switch tactics. She insisted she had paid for a premium Caribbean sun experience, and by turning the ship away from the sun without her explicit written permission, the captain had stolen 3 hours of ultraviolet radiation from her vacation, for which she required immediate financial restitution. 8. Todd, a 34-year-old software developer from Seattle traveling with 3 college fraternity brothers, approached his vacation not as a relaxing leisure experience, but as a hostile financial audit that he needed to aggressively solve. He had purchased the premium unlimited beverage package for $110 a day. Unlike most passengers who use the package to carelessly order brightly colored cocktails, Todd did not want to get intoxicated. He just wanted to mathematically defeat the cruise line. He logged every single liquid he consumed into a custom color-coded Excel spreadsheet on his phone. This is sunk cost thinking pushed to its absolute bureaucratic extreme, the bizarre psychological state where a consumer treats a paid vacation entirely as an exercise in margin extraction. By the morning of day 4, Todd marched down to the guest services desk, completely sober and radiating the intense energy of an IRS agent. He slammed his phone onto the marble counter, displaying a multi-tab spreadsheet and a perfectly formatted pie chart. According to Todd's meticulous calculations, he was drinking a reasonable volume of liquids, but because he personally preferred domestic light beer and standard iced coffees over the $15 premium martinis, his actual daily retail consumption only averaged $74. He was currently operating at a $36 daily deficit, and he was absolutely furious about it. He demanded a prorated cash refund for the difference between what he paid and the retail value of what he drank. When the bewildered agent explained that the beverage package is a flat-rate convenience fee and not a running tab, Todd refused to accept it. He attempted to argue that the ship's bartenders had a strict fiduciary duty to warn him that he was ordering below his package's value tier, claiming they should have legally stopped him from ordering a $6 beer. He demanded that the cruise line either cancel his package from the very first day and charge him a la carte, or refund the difference in cash, genuinely arguing that the corporation had committed value entrapment by purposely placing the expensive top-shelf liquors on the actual top shelf, where he couldn't easily read the labels without his reading glasses, thereby intentionally sabotaging his daily return on investment. 9. Richard, a 58-year-old orthopedist from Connecticut, spent 30 minutes in his cabin wrestling himself into a remarkably stiff, rented tuxedo for the ship's highly anticipated first formal night. He marched down the grand, sweeping staircase into the main dining room, sweating slightly inside his heavily starched collar and adjusting his bow tie, only to immediately witness a catastrophic breach of maritime protocol. At the very next table, happily buttering a dinner roll, sat a young man in a crisp, dark pair of designer jeans and a casual blazer. Richard instantly abandoned his shrimp cocktail, bypassed his assigned waiter, and marched straight to the maitre d's wooden podium to demand a full refund for his $55 tuxedo rental fee. He did not actually want the younger man kicked out of the dining room. Rather, he was infuriated by the sudden, crushing realization that his own physical suffering was entirely optional. He argued loudly that the cruise line had subjected him to fraudulent elegance requirements, tricking him into renting restrictive, uncomfortable formal wear under the strict pretense that the dress code would be rigorously enforced by security. Because someone else had successfully bypassed the invisible rules and was comfortably eating dinner in denim, Richard felt his rented tuxedo had been instantly stripped of its social value, rendering the garment a completely defective product that warranted an immediate refund. 10. Walter, a 62-year-old retired acoustic engineer and commercial sound designer from Portland, Oregon, marched down to the shore excursions desk on day 3 of a 14-night Pacific coastal cruise. He specifically chose the shore excursions desk because he deemed the regular guest services queue beneath his intellectual standing, and he required a captive audience for what he firmly believed was the greatest corporate fraud in maritime history. Walter gently placed a highly expensive, meticulously calibrated digital decibel meter onto the faux marble counter, crossed his arms tightly over his fleece vest, and officially demanded a 50% cash refund for his premium midship balcony suite. His complaint was not about the quality of the food, the service, or the cleanliness of the vessel. His grievance was that the ocean itself was fundamentally defective. Specifically, he argued that the ambient sound of the waves crashing against the steel hull of the vessel was, in his professional opinion, suspiciously rhythmic, overly synthesized, and entirely lacking in natural acoustic variation. Walter had convinced himself, through the sheer, unyielding force of his own technical paranoia, that the cruise line was actively pumping a fake, pre-recorded audio loop of ocean sounds through an elaborate network of hidden external speakers designed specifically to mask the mechanical hum of the engine room. He produced a heavily annotated, hand-drawn schematic showing exactly where he genuinely believed the multinational corporation had concealed waterproof subwoofers along the ship's waterline. This is a classic example of professional deformation in a leisure environment, when an individual's highly specialized career expertise becomes a psychological prison, rendering them entirely incapable of experiencing uncurated reality without instantly suspecting a corporate conspiracy. The shore excursions manager, completely bewildered and staring blankly at the complex audio diagrams, immediately called down to the chief engineer. The accusation was so uniquely unhinged that the chief engineer personally abandoned his post and went up to Walter's cabin to investigate the phantom subwoofers. Walter smugly led the engineer out onto the windswept balcony, pointing aggressively at the dark water and demanding he listen to the allegedly artificial, looping wave cycle. The engineer listened carefully, frowned in deep confusion, and noticed that the sound wasn't actually coming from the sea. He slowly dropped to his knees, crawled back inside the cabin, lifted the heavily draped bedskirt, and reached directly under Walter's own mattress. He emerged holding a sleek, black, highly expensive Bluetooth travel speaker that was currently vibrating violently with the soothing sounds of breaking surf. The twist unspooled with agonizing clarity. Walter had not uncovered a massive maritime conspiracy. Before leaving his house in Oregon, he had meticulously set a white noise sleep app on his iPad to play a track called Tropical Ocean Waves Volume 4 on an infinite loop to help him sleep in unfamiliar environments. The iPad had automatically connected to his travel speaker the moment he unpacked his suitcase on day one, and it had been blasting synthetic wave sounds from beneath his own bed for 72 straight hours, completely overpowering the actual Pacific Ocean located just 10 feet away. A reasonable person, faced with this humiliating revelation, would have apologized profusely, tipped the engineer, and retreated in shame. Walter did none of those things. He stared at his own speaker, crossed his arms even tighter, and seamlessly pivoted his entire legal argument without missing a single beat. He looked the chief engineer dead in the eye and demanded his refund anyway, claiming that the ship's remarkably strong premium Wi-Fi package was entirely at fault for allowing his iPad to automatically download the audio update in the background without his explicit consent, thereby creating a digitally hostile acoustic environment that completely ruined his vacation. 11. I want you to imagine paying thousands of dollars for luxury service, only to treat it like a personal threat. Susan, a 55-year-old interior decorator from Phoenix, approached the guest relations desk on a Caribbean sailing with a demand that thoroughly broke the brains of the seasoned customer service staff. She was officially requesting a full, cash refund of her prepaid daily gratuities, plus an additional $500 in emotional damages, all because her stateroom attendant was simply too good at his job. She claimed she was the terrified victim of what she classified as aggressive and hostile hospitality. According to Susan, her attendant, a remarkably cheerful and dedicated man named Putu, was monitoring her daily movements with the predatory efficiency of a special ops agent. Every single time she left her cabin for more than 12 minutes, whether to grab a quick coffee at the Promenade Cafe, watch a trivia game, or lose $40 at the slot machines, she would return to find her bed perfectly remade, her discarded clothes folded into immaculate geometric squares, and her bathroom towels sculpted into various complex tropical wildlife. While most exhausted passengers would view this invisible service as the ultimate premium luxury, Susan viewed it as a relentless, targeted psychological attack. She emphatically explained to the desk agent that she was naturally a slightly messy person at home, and Putu's relentless, unstoppable tidying was inducing a deep, paralyzing sense of domestic inadequacy. She had even tried to fight back by intentionally leaving a single sock on the floor and quickly running down the hallway, only to return 10 minutes later to find the sock perfectly rolled and neatly tucked away inside her shoe. She argued that by folding her discarded pajama pants into a neat triangle on the edge of the mattress 3 times a day, and by organizing her chaotic makeup bag by color palette, the cruise line was actively judging her lifestyle and weaponizing cleanliness to make her feel deeply ashamed. She genuinely demanded financial compensation because the sheer psychological burden of trying to keep the room slightly messy, just to prove she still had free will, was preventing her from fully relaxing by the pool. 12. Derek, a heavily muscled 40-year-old personal trainer from Miami, demanded a full refund for his week-long thermal suite spa pass, utilizing logic that treated the physical dimensions of the ship as a personal insult. His reasoning was that the vessel was simply too large, constituting an unauthorized breach of his vacation recovery plan. Since his interior cabin was located on Deck 3, all the way at the front of the ship, and the all-you-can-eat buffet was located on Deck 15. All the way at the back, Derek had meticulously tracked his steps on his smartwatch and calculated that he was walking roughly 3 miles a day just to forage for carbohydrates. He marched up to the spa reception desk and argued that the cruise line was providing mandatory, non-consensual cardio. Because he was being forced to burn precious calories just to navigate the massive floating resort, he claimed his expensive spa pass, purchased specifically for physical resting and muscular recovery, was now entirely redundant. He demanded his money back, absolutely insisting that the ship's architect had intentionally designed the dining venues to be as far away from the cabins as possible, specifically to trick lazy passengers into exercising, thereby invalidating his constitutional right to remain completely sedentary on his holiday. 13. Evelyn, a 68-year-old retired boutique owner with a meticulously maintained salon blowout, marched to the front desk on day 6 of a freezing Alaskan cruise equipped with a leather-bound journal and a fierce threat to contact international maritime authorities. She was demanding a 100% refund for her premium aft-facing balcony suite, claiming the expensive room was structurally compromised and actively conspiring against her physical comfort. Her central grievance was that every single night, exactly between 2 o'clock and 3:30 in the morning, the stateroom's digital air conditioning unit would completely shut down, turning the cabin into a stifling, humid box that ruined her perfectly styled hair while she tried to sleep. She presented her handwritten logbook, demanding massive compensation for her ruined hair, her severe lack of sleep, and the sheer indignity of sweating on a luxury vacation. The ship's maintenance crew took this extremely seriously, as a failing HVAC system in a premium suite is a major hospitality issue. Engineering teams spent 2 consecutive afternoons running complex digital diagnostics, checking the freon levels, and completely recalibrating the wall thermostat, finding absolutely 0 mechanical faults. The air conditioning was running perfectly. Frustrated by the lack of answers and Evelyn's escalating threats, the hotel director decided to pull the internal digital sensor logs specifically for cabin 9214. Modern mega cruise ships feature a brilliant energy-saving safety mechanic. If a balcony door is open to the outside elements, a magnetic sensor immediately cuts the air conditioning to prevent the system from burning out by trying to cool the entire ocean. The digital log revealed that the balcony door wasn't just opening, it was being deliberately propped open for exactly 90 minutes every single night at 2 a.m. Armed with this undeniable data, the hotel director invited Evelyn and her remarkably quiet, intensely nervous husband, Harold, to the desk. When presented with the electronic sensor data proving the door was being intentionally left open, the real story unspooled with devastating clarity. Harold slowly shrank into his orthotic sneakers, refusing to make eye contact with his wife. Evelyn had placed Harold on a violently strict, medically unnecessary keto diet 3 months before the cruise, strictly forbidding him from consuming any sugar. But Harold had quickly discovered the wondrous magic of the ship's 24-hour complimentary room service. Every single night, he would wait until Evelyn took her heavy prescription sleeping pill and began to snore. Then, he would sneak out of bed, call the kitchen, order a massive slice of double fudge chocolate cake with a side of vanilla ice cream, and wedge his right walking shoe into the sliding balcony door. He did this so he could sit outside in the freezing Alaskan night air to eat his contraband dessert in total secrecy, hoping the strong ocean breeze would carry away the undeniable scent of chocolate. In doing so, he was automatically disabling the cabin's AC and causing his wife to sweat through her blowout. When the absolute truth was laid bare on the mahogany counter, Evelyn did not turn her fury toward her deceitful, cake-smuggling husband. Instead, she executed a flawless, blinding pivot of pure entitlement. She looked the hotel director dead in the eye, tapped her manicured nails on the desk, and demanded her full refund anyway. She argued that the cruise line's room service department was inherently predatory, claiming they had maliciously enabled her husband's dietary betrayal by failing to require a spouse's written signature for late-night pastry deliveries, thereby making the multi-billion-dollar corporation fully liable for her ruined hair. These people simply refused to be the villains in their own stories, so they tried to find the cruise line for their own choices. Honestly, who would you rather be stuck dining with? The guy tracking his beer deficit on a spreadsheet, or the man suing his own white noise machine? Argue it out below. Subscribe if you prefer your human psychology served with dry sarcasm and maritime absurdity.